Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Eric and today I'm going to be going over some of the drawbacks or cons from the 12 horsepower Hangkai, which in reality is actually a 9.8 Tohatsu clone. I'm going to go over the cons mostly because if you don't address these problems, then you're going to have some of the issues you may have heard online about these motors and the bad reputation. They go bad or they break. Well, I have the chance to spend quite some time with this motor. It's actually a fantastic motor. However, I got my 6 horsepower Tohatsu. I'm gonna show you guys some comparisons as to why something like main brand outboards last longer. It primarily comes from the care and the setup from the factory, and mostly about lubrication. I'm gonna go over all of those details. So before you guys buy a Hangkai 12 horsepower, watch this video to its entirety. And by the end, you should be pretty much well informed what to do, how to do it, and making your outboard last just as long as the main brand. So let me get to work. Okay, I'm gonna start this video from bottom to top. And I got you guys like closed in so you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about. You guys see this little thing right here? That is called the sacrificial sink anode. Throughout the operation of the outboard while you're in the water, and this applies to any outboard really, you develop something called hydrostatic electricity that flows to the motor, to the motor. All this static electricity has to go in and come out some way, and electricity finds the path of least resistance, and to get out to the water. And when it comes out, it causes tiny little electrical explosions, and it can break the paint. That's why some of the paint on the outboards tend to chip and break apart, because people overlook at the sink anode. These are very cheap, very inexpensive. After like 100 hours or so of use, you might want to check it to see if it's intact. And if you want to replace it, go ahead. It costs like 12 bucks. That'll maintain the metal surface of the outboard intact. The second thing I want to go over is this propeller is held by a spline, by a metal spline right here. You guys see there's a cotter pin and there's a bolt that holds it all in place. If you have the opportunity, I recommend you remove the cotter pin, remove the bolt, and remove the propeller, because the spline from the factory does not come lube. And over time, if you start using the outboard and things of that nature, the propeller will begin to fuse to the spline. You can never get this out. So when you get it out of the factory, take this apart, put a little bit of grease. I got some grease right here, some marine grease, something like that, or like a mechanic's shop grease. That'll work as well. Put it in there, and you'll be good to go. That's the second thing I want you guys to look at. We got the sink anode and greasing in the spline. Let's continue. This third part I want to go over is you see these little nipples right here? These little things, sorry for the reference of nipples, but these are grease points. You will need something like this in order to actually grease them. These are very inexpensive. You can get them at Walmart, you can get them at Harbor Freight. I'll put some links below from Amazon. You guys can get that. And you want to grease these joints. It took me like 12 pumps for the grease to start coming out. So that means that from the factory, these were not greased. Not whatsoever. So that'll be the third thing you want to look into, is to make sure that these grease points are well greased. Otherwise, well, you run the risk of ruining the outboard over time. So yeah. See, this is my Tohatsu 6 horsepower. I went ahead and removed the cowling from the factory. You see all these metal wires right here? All that metal wiring? You see the little yellow stuff? That's grease. That's grease from the factory. These wires come well greased from the factory, preventing further corrosion. Whereas this one does not. I had to go ahead and get some grease and WD-40 that spritz it around. To keep the coating, to keep it well coated. I put grease in there, in those little metal parts right here, the throttle cables, and even this tube. I even put a little bit of grease on the trimming bolt right here, this trimming bolt. I put a little bit of grease to prevent any further corrosion. So that's the next thing you want to look into, to make sure that all the metal parts, the little parts that move like this, like the throttle wires and all that, make sure they're well greased. You don't want those breaking on you. So yeah, that's the next thing I want to show you guys about these Hangkai. One more thing that I forgot to mention, on my 6 horsepower, I have a hydrofoil installed. I got another pair right here that I need to install on my Hangkai. A hydrofoil, especially on high-powered outboards, I wouldn't say this high power, but comparison to 6, this thing has almost double the power. Whenever you're running the motor on full throttle, some of the water will jump above the transom, and it'll get inside your boat. Having some hydrofoils, not only does it provide better gliding ability, better off the shot ability, and it'll help you get into plane quicker. It'll also help you prevent some of the oversplash you jump over the transom of your boat. So getting a hydrofoil will be very convenient. Now, the next item on the list that I want to discuss is braking period of these outboards. You see, unlike a 4-stroke outboard where there's oil inside the chamber of the engine itself, it can be a bit more forgiving if you give it more throttle or if you go straight to the water with it. This one being a 2-stroke, it relies on the gasoline to receive lubrication. It uses a 25-to-1 mix ratio during the braking period, which is about 5 ounces of the 2-stroke oil. Actually, talking about 2-stroke oil, let me get the container so you guys can see what I'm talking about. As I was mentioning, unlike a 4-stroke engine with the oils inside, you will need some 2-stroke oil, a little measuring cup that will go inside your tank. Again, for the braking period on this motor is 25-to-1, which is 5 ounces of this oil for every gallon of gasoline. So if you have, let's say, this is a 6-gallon tank, right? So that means that you're looking at about maybe 30 ounces, give or take, something like that. Yep, about 30 ounces of this goes in here, and you're good to go. For those of you who are not familiar with 2-stroke engines, that's actually how it functions. Now, as I was mentioning, during the braking period, it is very important you run the braking period. I personally did it on a bucket throughout the week. I just ran it for about an hour and a half. I did the first 10 hours with a 25-to-1 ratio. Once I took it on the water, which, by the way, I have an unboxing and a water review. I put the links below. You guys can check it. During the water review, I was running a 35-to-1 ratio because, again, the initial braking that I did, it was just on a bucket. It wasn't under load. And that is the next thing that you have to keep in mind is the braking period. Right now, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna run it. You guys can see. These things are so awesome. As you guys can see, I named it Hangkai. That was a that was a little gag that I did in one of my YouTube shorts with a person that was making some comments. So yeah, let me go and get started. Here we go. I swear, these things are so awesome. And there he goes. It's predictable. That's what I like about this outboard. It's predictable. I'll show you. Of course, it is smoking. This is a 2-stroke. However, I have noticed that after it warms up, some of the smoke just goes away. You barely see any. It's just, it kind of settles down. See, it's already settling down. That's it. Well, in conclusion, if you're in the market to get one of these, the main pro getting one of these is that I'll show you guys some prices. When I purchased my 6-horsepower Tohatsu, I think I bought it for $1,300 back then. I think right now they're going for about $15 or so, and they don't come with an external tank. You have to purchase an external tank separately, and they can cost you another $100 or so. While this one, I think I'll show you guys some links from Amazon. They usually go between $1,100 to $1,200. It already comes with a tank. If you want one that's comparable to this 4-stroke, like I used to have the Tohatsu 9.8, those go for like $2,300, $2,500. You start to see the difference here. Yeah, Tohatsu might be better quality that comes out of the factory because it comes well lubed and prepared, and it's a 4-stroke and it's also heavier. But here's the kicker. Hear me out. I'm being biased towards this brand for a reason. This thing has the same weight as my 6-horsepower Tohatsu. My 6-horsepower Tohatsu is 60 pounds. 60 pounds. This one, 60 pounds. Same thing. Same thing. But come on, you're stuck. Don't get stuck already. Making me look bad on the video. Technical difficulties. 1 second. There we go. Okay, I think I got it. See, this thing is like 60 pounds. Very lightweight. Now, is it like super lightweight like a 2.3 horsepower Honda? No. It was like 30 pounds. But yeah, exact same weight. Exact same weight. That's what it blew my mind, because putting it in my car and taking it out of my car, because I use inflatable boats. I fold them up, put them in the trunk of my car, and then I go. So yeah, guys, if you plan to buy one of these, follow these basic procedures. Number 1, make sure you grease up the spline that holds the propeller. Number 2, keep an eye on the sink anode. You want to make sure you change that after like 100, 150 hours. They're cheap. Change them. It'll prevent the paint from breaking apart. It'll keep it it'll keep it intact for the most part. Optional will be to go with the hydrofoil. It's actually recommended because it'll prevent splashing, over splashing over the trams like I mentioned. It'll help you catch plane a little bit quicker. It'll actually improve, not by a whole lot, maybe 1 or 2% fuel economy, because a 2-stroke uses a little bit more gas than a 4-stroke for obvious reasons. For those of you who are not familiar with 2-strokes, you can look at videos online that'll explain it all. It's just too complicated. The way the compression works and the way the revolutions happen, it uses a little bit more gas. Just keep that in mind. But that's the reason you get a 6-gallon tank. Plenty of range. I think I've done like 3 trips already. I've done like 45 miles on the water already, and I still got a quarter of the tank. And the braking period, by the way, I have yet to fill it up since the braking. So let's see, what else am I missing? So we got the the little nipples, of course. Make sure you lubricate the nipples. There's 2 of them. There's 2 joints. Make sure they're lubricated. Inside the cowling, make sure that the throttle cable are lubed. You can actually grab some WD-40 and spritz it around inside the engine chamber. It'll keep everything lubed and getting, corroded. Let's see, am I missing anything else? That's it. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you found this video informative. I will put links of this below. You guys can check it. It also helps me to make further videos, and I'll see you guys on the next one. I love this motor.
I went and unplugged. This is additional footage. I went ahead and unplugged the fuel line. I turned it on. I recommend you do that whenever you're done with your trip and you're reaching the dock. Unplug the fuel line, let it run empty. This will keep the reservoir, the carburetor dry. You want that, because if you keep it in storage for, let's say, a month or 2, you don't want that gasoline to gunk up the carburetor. It takes forever to clean. So, trick of the trade. By the time you're done with your trip, unplug the fuel line, let it run dry. That actually happened live. Not bad.